So we always start off by just doing a little bit introduction into the player themselves, and we always ask them, how would you introduce yourself? How do you reflect back in your career? And when someone says, guide us through how your career started to where you're at now, how would you take that away?
Me, you talking to me or George? Sorry.
You, Adam.
Okay, so yeah, so I started off at a local club called Wormley, and from there got picked up at from Spurs at 9 years old. So from 9 to 11 was at Spurs, got released, signed for Watford, and then from then until 21, 22 was at Watford, and then from then on obviously had a few loans, and then signed permanently for Southend. Southend to Bury to Rotherham to Leyton Orient, and then now free agent.
And currently being a free agent, then is that would you say the most difficult period you've had currently in your career?
It's different to anything else I've had in my career. I've never been like a free agent like this. When Bury folded as a club, there was a period when I was on trial at Bolton. There was a period when I was like in a bit of limbo then, but this has obviously been, that was only for probably about a few weeks. This has been about obviously a few months. So yeah, it's definitely different in terms of like the hardest in my career. No, I've had a few like other setbacks that have been harder than this, but just in terms of the time out, it's strange. Like obviously seeing all the games go on, me not have a pre-season. But I've had like an injury that I've sort of been trying to get over, so that's the reason for it. But been running the last few weeks, and it feels the best it's felt in a good couple of years. So hopefully now at the end of it, and hopefully I'll find a club soon.
Well, hopefully you find a club, and hopefully the recovery from injury is going well. But it's that what you say there is having a career from where you've been young, playing for Spurs, going on to Watford, and all the clubs you've been at, and all the experiences to currently being a free agent. That time period of the length that you've been training and being part of a club, and then not being part of a club, must be such a strange feeling and experience.
Yeah, it has been really strange, and it's like it's tough because there's been a few setbacks with the injury as well. I've had it pretty much on and off for the last 2 years. I say on and off. I've had it for the last 2 years. So sort of like based on my Achilles, had like sort of tendonitis. So the last 2 years or so, like fans, family haven't seen like the real me. It's just been me sort of trying to get through games, really playing through a lot of pain. But now it's the first time I'm actually running without pain. So now the hardest bit for me is just trying to keep that sort of, not hardest bit because I am quite disciplined, but it's just strange trying to keep that discipline every day, eating right, training by myself without obviously having to do it. Obviously, usually you've got to be in training at 9, go gym before you train, you get home, you have a nap. Whereas now it's like sort of trying to balance like family life with my new business, with obviously trying to keep fit for a club that obviously hopefully I sign for a club. So yeah, there's lots of different dynamics going on really.
And when you have those certain dynamics, when it comes to overcoming an injury, currently being a free agent, setting up a business, spending time with the family, staying disciplined, there's a lot of sort of to juggle in every different mindset which comes in each piece as they sort of unfold in terms of your day, your week, etc. And trying to balance all those can be a very difficult period in anyone's life, right? But for you being at 32, I always argue this because everyone at 32 is still very, very young, right? And you always hear pundits saying, right, once you cross 30, you're in that sort of stage where it's transition towards retirement. But being 32 and sort of being in this position where you are setting up a business and having a bit more time to look at that, would you say that it's a bit of a transition time for you in your mind, or is it full on coming back to football and then the business will work out alongside that at some point?
No, you're spot on. Like it was literally the thought in my head was I was going to like finish with football because the pain in my Achilles was that bad. I was like, right, I just need to find something else. So that's why I started up the business. But since then, funnily enough, whether it could be something where it's like I've taken my mind off it, and that's helped it, because every day I was waking up thinking like, is it going to be all right? And then that first step out of bed is just like, oh, it's still painful, and it just ruins your day. Whereas when you're in that mindset of like, well, it doesn't matter if it hurts because I'm not playing football anymore, you just relax a bit more, and maybe that's had a part to play. But yeah, like it's been definitely tough. It's like I've started off my business, and it's like, how much effort do I put into that? Do I literally go gung ho with that? And then now I'm sort of thinking, well, I do want to get back into football, because obviously my Achilles feels better, and I feel like I can offer something to a club. So then I'm thinking, well, do I put everything into that? And then I'm like such a family man, like I've got my 2 kids, a third on the way, and I'm literally just like, I just want to spend all my time with them. So as you can hear with me saying it, it's just like, there's 3 different things at the moment where I just want to put my complete 100% effort into. So that has been a battle in my head of sort of trying to like, dedicate a certain amount of time to each 3 of them, so then they all get my my attention. So that has been tough. But I think at the moment I've had to sacrifice probably maybe the business a little bit at the moment, the last couple of weeks, just to get back to running and obviously spend time with my family. But there'll be a time soon when I might have to sacrifice a bit of the family time, because I will be maybe training with clubs or playing for clubs. So yeah, it has been a very tough period mentally, definitely.
And just before I hand over to you, George, it's that sort of very difficult position, and also kind of a great position to be in, because you've got these 3 different options in front of you, and it's nice to have that time to focus on what you want to develop on it, and whether you go down route 1, 2, or 3, for example. But it's also the worst kind of position, because you sort of want that crystal ball, right, where you could jump in, look at the future for each of the options, and then decide here and now which one would be the best. But we have that impossible sort of barrier, because we don't have that crystal ball, and it's very difficult to try and make a decision without knowing what the outcome would be, whilst not trying to sacrifice, i.e. your family time, when you could look back in the future and go, my family time has been the most important thing that I wish I had more of. Or do you know what, I wish I went back and put more into the business, or put, had a few more years in football. And they're the very difficult things. And it's one of those where football is everyone's dream. And, at the age of 32, you're still very young. And if you have the opportunity to still offer a club something, you could get, 2 or 3 more years. Yes, you do get the financial benefit when you are getting paid, and you can give the family different experiences, and you can travel, and you can get a few more, whether it be 100 games still. That's still an amazing experience to have. And then you could walk around on your own terms and have the business and the family. But it's also very difficult, because you're in this current position which you're in life, and you don't have that crystal ball effect. So I know what it's like to be in that position when you're trying to weigh up a lot of options, but you don't have effectively those answers to go with them.
100%. I think you said it all. I don't need to say anything there. Like, you need to be my therapist, I think, because honestly, like, that has literally just summed it up. Literally, like, yeah, perfectly there. That has been all of the thoughts going on in my head. Just that constant sort of tugging, and the battle in your head of like you said, you want it to be clear to you. I'm one of them people that if there's something there that I want to achieve, I'll give it my 100%. If I don't achieve it, I don't achieve it. That's fine. But I need to know that I've given it my all to rest easy in my bed. Whereas at the moment, obviously, when you're starting off a business, I'm definitely not putting my 100% into that, because I haven't got the time at the moment with like the football and the family. Obviously, with the family, I'm still trying to sort of split time between business and football, so I'm not putting 100% into that, even though I'm technically not really doing anything at the moment. And then in terms of football, you can always be doing more. I've done like a post on this on Instagram. It's like, how much more, like, how many things do you want to do to get into the best shape you can? There's always more you can be doing. You can be eating better. You can be doing more running. You can be doing more gym. You can be doing ice baths. You can be doing all sorts. So it's like trying to get that balance. But like you said, that the main battle for me has been, what am I going to prioritize? And I think that's the definition of like overwhelm, is basically you not knowing what your priorities are. So it's been a bit overwhelming, basically, because I've had to do some work on what are my priorities at this time, and I think I've come to a conclusion at the moment. I'm trying to put a lot into football to try and get a club now, and hopefully clubs will be interested in a free agent, like an experienced centre back. But if not, then obviously I'll crack on with the business.
a very exciting time, but also a very sort of apprehensive time because you don't know where it's going to take you or what club might reach out to you or where you could end up traveling and all those sort of little details that come into it. And George, I could take the floor away with many questions and dive into this with Adam a lot further, right? And I'm very appreciative of handing it over to you. But I just wanted to open up on there a little bit. But George, I'm going to hand over to you, mate. And thanks, Adam, for being very open there as I asked you those questions, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Luca.
You right, Adam?
Yes, George, you right, mate?
Yeah, not bad. So let's dive into football and that a bit more. I mean, like we've been speaking off here and that, just for like Luca's purpose and anyone. With football, I mean, you're just saying then about with the business and then the looking to play at football. So when you've playing football, you've got the pressure of everybody on top of you with supporters, managers, coaches, you name it, players around you. And then you've got your business that you're the boss of yourself, but you've got pressure on yourself to deliver that, if that makes sense. So do you feel that there's one that's a bit better than the other, do you feel? Or do you feel that you like the challenges both as much?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's pretty much is the external pressure or the internal pressure greater? I would say at the moment, obviously, the internal pressure is definitely greater because there's no fans here. So obviously, the business is just online at the moment, just Instagram. So the only pressure / fear that I'm battling is the fear of judgment. As footballers, I feel like we don't like to put ourselves out there that much. Generally, but not on social media as much. Obviously, there'll be one or two, but generally, I think we like to sort of keep ourselves to ourselves, and I was definitely one of them. So for me now to go out there and put my face into a camera and start speaking about experiences and my life and my struggles, that has been a bit of a struggle. But yeah, I think my internal pressure is always greater than the external, to answer your question, because I am so I'm like my harshest critic, so no one else can tell me something that I don't already know. So if the fans are battering me, that's fine. Like I'll know already I'm having a bad game, so they don't need to tell me, or that won't make it worse for me, because what I'll be saying or battling with in my own head will be a lot worse. So I would say the internal pressure is harder to deal with for me personally.
Okay, thanks for answering that. Yeah, it's I think when you're the boss of yourself, if I call it that, then you know what you can do better, I suppose. You can challenge that in, you can think, right, okay, something's missing here. What can I do further? When you've got that pressure from the crowd or whatever, it can be quite, I suppose, when you're playing, it can hit you, can't it, on a mental level? And it's trying to how you weigh that criticism in your head, because then you sort of deal with it, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with it because you've got to go into further games then trying to prove a point, haven't you?
Yeah, no, exactly. If there's actually one thing that I've really enjoyed since coming out of football for this period, it's been like that transition between being an employee and being say the owner of a business. It's like obviously it's fresh. It's like I've only started about a month ago, but like you can do what you want in your days. So like I can go and meet people. I can fire out messages on LinkedIn, have calls with people, have FaceTime, have Zooms, trying to network. It's literally it's whatever you want to do, however much you want to do, how little you want to do. It's your decision. Whereas obviously coming from a football environment, you obviously try your hardest every day, but you sort of, it's very one-dimensional in a way, in terms of like you go in, it becomes very the same sort of thing. It's like you go in, you have your breakfast, you go to the gym, you do your same sort of exercises that work for you. You go out, you give your all, you try your hardest. But training generally doesn't look too different throughout a week, and then you play matches on Saturday, and that's it, sort of thing. And it's like you do what you're told, obviously, by the manager, by the coaching staff. So yeah, it wouldn't be a classic employee situation, you wouldn't think, football, but that's what it is. You are an employee at the end of the day, and you have to do what you're told. And sometimes, but you fear answering back to people. And yeah, as I say, if you lose on a Saturday 4-0 and the manager says you're in Sunday, even though if you planned something with the family on Sunday, you're in Sunday, that's it. and you're doing an analysis session. Whereas the thing that enticed me to start my own business was, one, I'm very interested in psychology. I really feel like I can help people. I care about people a lot. But two, starting your own business, it sort of gives you that freedom to, like you said, make your own hours, have the freedom to do what you want, really. And that's not saying that I'm going to, I'll work 1 hour a day then because I've got my own business. It just means that you can design your own days, really, which I've never had. So that transition has been really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's really interesting to know. I mean, what would you advise to a younger self or people younger than you that's going into professional football that has to deal with critics, one? And then if there was people that's going into a business venture like you are, what would you give advice to them?
Yeah, good question. I think the first thing that comes to mind would be the same thing to both of them. So it would be you're always going to fear judgment. But if you don't have judgment, then you can't get anywhere. So as a footballer, if you don't get judged, then you're not going to make it to the top. So you need to be judged to obviously get scouted, to get your plaudits, to get in team this season, to get moves. You need to be judged. So obviously there's going to be people that judge you that aren't going to be having you, and they're going to have a negative judgment on you, and there's going to be people that have positive judgment on you. That's just life. So obviously when I was younger, I could have 100 tweets that were positive or 100 conversations that were positive and one that was negative, and that would be the one that stuck in your mind, which is normal because negative thoughts are just natural for the human brain. But I think for starting a business or starting out in football, you have to, it's easier said than done, but you have to accept that everyone's going to judge you. There's going to be negative judgments out there, but there's no way around it. You have to get judged if you want to get to where you want to get to in the game.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, with social media, it's as we've seen with the case with Brennan Johnson, it's been renowned that obviously he's deactivated his account and everything like that, and it's just, I suppose, been a blessing maybe because of 6 goals in 6 games now. Do you feel that with social media, how do players react to that? Do they all react differently? Do they want to prove a point? Does it hurt them a lot, or what's the process with that? Because I can't imagine seeing after a performance and it's not been for best side that you read loads of comments from supporters saying, "Oh, why are you playing him again? This and that and whatever." It must be very demoralising on a personal level because you take it to heart, surely.
Yeah, from personal experience, I think everyone, no matter what they say or act like, takes negative comments on social media to heart. So you get some lads that are just completely off of social media, maybe generally the more experienced lads, which in my opinion is the best way to be if you are trying to make it in the game. And if you do know that stuff like that does affect you quite a lot, then just come off it completely. Then you got like two other types of player. One who you can tell they're fragile. You can tell the comments and the social media scrutiny, especially when they've had a bad game, does affect them. So even when they've had a positive game, you can see that they're a little bit more like, oh yeah, they're walking a bit different, they're talking a bit different, and it's sort of pumped up their tires, should I say. And then when obviously there's negative comments, you can see their sort of shoulders are hunched, they come in a bit, you know they're taking it to heart. And that's very obvious to look at. And then the other type of player is the player that just sort of maybe on the coach on the way home, oh my word, look at this person, like look what they said to me, like I can't believe they said this about me. And even though they're trying to act as if it doesn't affect them, they will go home and they will think about that and it will affect them. So I think what I'm trying to say is, in my experience, the only way of truly overcoming that and dealing with it the best is, like you said, Brennan Johnson's done, just completely come off it. Now, whether that's been the reason for his turn in form, or whether that's contributed to it, or whether it's just literally the mindset of, do you know what, I don't care anymore, because if my own fans are abusing me, then what's the worst that can happen? I either play bad and they keep abusing me, or I play and I don't care anymore, or I play well. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sort of done with them. I'm not playing to please anyone anymore. I'm now just playing for myself, and I don't care because they've just crossed the line now. So I think that mentality mixed with maybe the coming off of it off of social media has definitely had an effect on his performance. Yeah, and I think, like you said, a lot of players could maybe take a leaf out of that, even if it's just a trial period. Just give it a go, because I know how hard it is to come off completely. I get it. I'm not one here saying like everyone come off. It's easy. I know it's not easy, even for me, and I'm not a big on social media. But for the young lads, maybe give it a week, see how it goes, and then go back on for a week, and then maybe come off for 2 weeks, and just try them little, like they call it technology fasting. I honestly feel like you'll see a pattern maybe over the next few months if you go 1 week off, 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, and I think that could help a lot of young players.
Yeah, that's very refreshing to hear, because you don't see many coaches or managers on social media, really, do you? It's and probably that's why, because of all the stick and decision makings, I suppose, for games. I mean, seeing on Twitter today, Ange Postecoglou's got slated left, right, and centre after yesterday. Um, I just feel that that's the way the world is now, unfortunately. I mean, you might not had social media X amount of years ago and you just had it from terraces, but times have evolved on that, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of players actually see it as a tool to maybe like promote themselves. But the problem I see with it is that the players aren't using it to their full capacity. I think if players are going to be using it, they could be using it so many better ways, like maybe showing like little glimpses of like what they do at the training ground, or little glimpses of what they eat at home, or like a little look into their life. They get so many more followers. It's like real content. But all I see is players after games say, "Our fans were fantastic today. Disappointed not to get the 3 points, but we go again Tuesday." It's just like I've seen that tweet a million times in a few different forms. It's like, "Oh, great to get the 3 points today. Fans are amazing. On to next Saturday. Keep this run going." It's like that's not good enough anymore. Like if I'm following, I support Spurs. If I follow them and they say that, I'm not interested. Whereas if there was like, this is my daily routine, or this is what I do day before a match, or this is how long I'm away from my family when we have a Champions League game on a Tuesday night, and then we have to play away on a Saturday. We don't actually go back to London. We stay in this hotel. You'd be like, oh wow, okay. And obviously with that, you get the financial benefits of getting sponsorships and getting more followers. And I think that could work better. But the point I'm trying to make is, what's the point of even being on social media? Because you're taking all the negatives in, you're not getting any positives from it. You're just on there to say a token line of like, oh yeah, fans are great, and we're on to what you're gaining from it. Like I honestly don't know. If you was doing that, what I'm saying, and you was gaining £1,000 a month or £10,000 a month, you're the big boys from sponsorships and this. Oh, I love your account. I love what you're doing. You got so many more followers. But I get it. There's a risk and reward thing there. But when you're just on there to say the token thing and taking on negatives, just like, you might as well come off it.
No, absolutely. I think this is it. It's for, as the saying goes, action speaks louder than words.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like the players just fell into the trap of like they've seen the big boys do it, and they just feel like they should copy it, and they just feel like that's what a footballer should do. But yeah, it's just like, I feel like it's just lazy. It's just lazy from the players. And like you said, if you're on it, you're going to get negative comments 100%, whether it's by an actual person or a bot or whatever. And you're going to take them to heart more. And for me personally, that has definitely affected the way I feel after games. Even if I think I've had a good game, and there's one person that said, "Oh yeah, like he's done all right there, but like he's nowhere near as good as him." It's like that. Suddenly, them 100 tweets that are positive about how good was he today. I'm thinking about that one tweet, thinking, "Yeah, no, you're right. I've had a good game, but I'm not as good as him." It's like, it's crazy that like that's the effect it can have on you. And I guarantee I'm no different to any other footballer. Like they're all thinking the same. So yeah, like I said, I think the best way to do it is maybe come off. If you can't come off fully, then try the fasting thing.
Yeah, sound up. Do you want to add anything on to that, Luca?
I think it's when you consider it and you hear other footballers talk about it and the kind of criticism they face. even us being Twitter users, right, and you look through some of the tweets and replies to, some of the posts which you put out there, it's quite damning to have some of the responses come back. And even when you engage in certain conversations about football and there's someone that they don't like your response, you get a lot of harsh reality which comes from that. But when it comes to being a footballer and you've played in front of a few thousand fans, or you've been out on media as well because of the attention to the game, when you have that sort of tweet come back to you and you have 100 150 sort of negative replies, that is very difficult to sort of deal with, because you don't want to go home after a game, you might have lost 2-0, the manager's not happy, it's not been a great day, it's just one of those days, right? And you want to go home, you've got 2 young kids, you've got a girlfriend at home, etc., and you just want to switch off and spend time with them. But instead you've got all this harsh criticism coming through on your phone, and that's not really something you want to be dealing with when you're at home and with your family and just trying to switch off from things.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is the point. Like, you don't have to deal with it. And yeah, for me, when I come off of it about 3 months ago for a couple of months, for the first week, it was like I was sort of like kept wanting to go to it. The week after, it was just annoying. And then the week after that onwards, for the next 6 weeks or so, I was like, I didn't even notice it. Like, it doesn't add anything to for me personally to my life. All it is like comparing yourself to others, and like they say, obviously comparison is the thief of joy. So whatever you have, someone else is going to have something better than you. If you've got this watch, someone else got a better watch. If you've got this car, someone's got a better car. Everyone's on there obviously posing, putting their sort of like best foot forward on there, should I say. So like that, you're only seeing them smiling with their family. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But for you looking at it, you're thinking, oh my word, like, he's such a good dad. Like, I wish I could be a dad like that. And then the negative thoughts start to spiral. Why am I not a good dad? Like, why? Oh, I should be better. Like, I can't, all this sort of stuff. But the one thing I would say as well is, though, like, it's not going anywhere. So it's part of modern day. So if you're going to be, if you're willing to try and succeed in something, whether that's football, business, a podcast like you guys, if you want to get anywhere really and be successful, you're going to have to face a lot of people's opinions, and I think it's very important for anyone willing to sort of make a successful business, or like I said, let's say that your podcast, for example, the bigger it gets, you're going to get more people following, more interest, which obviously means more opinions. Now, it would be lovely if all of them, if you had 1 million people eventually like following or interested, like 1 million people aren't going to give you positive comments. They're not following because they're like fully supportive of it. They're following because they're thinking, what's this? What's going on here? Like, I've heard about this. And people going through all sorts in their lives. So they just want to vent at you behind a keyboard. And you got to have that strong mentality to not let it affect you, because you got to understand that actually these people, some of them, these aren't their actual opinions. They're just doing it to show off to other people online. They're actually like really sad. They're actually going through stuff. So as much as it does affect footballers and just people in general, I feel like if you have the perspective that these people are just struggling as well, and like as horrible as it is when you get a negative comment, and you're literally like, why have you said that? Like, that's so horrible. If you just have a think about it and flip on its head and be like, what could you be going through right now to make you want to say this horrible stuff about me on here when I haven't really done anything to you? So that perspective has definitely helped me, because I've definitely seen examples of that in my career.
And George, I hope you don't mind me pitching in here, but just to build on the back of that, Adam, I was very close to Lee Collins, who was unfortunately played for Yeovil and decided to take his life, right? And on the surface, 3 beautiful kids, beautiful misses, a nice house, nice car, right? Playing professional football, playing for Yeovil, getting paid, right? And to someone on the level surface, that's all great things to have. But when you look at the realities and speaking to Lee, right, he was worried about the end of his career. He was worried about where his money was going to come from. He's worried how he's going to look after his family. He was scared for retirement and what was going to come his way. He was constantly traveling up to Yeovil, staying in hotels, not seeing his kids, and he spent a lot of his career that way. And I don't think he could cope with the fact that he had a few more years left, and he didn't want to keep missing his kids' birthdays, etc. But then he also, was struggling with the thought that his career was coming to an end. So a lot got on top of him, and then below the surface, unfortunately, it cracked for him, and he made a very tough decision in life and left behind a very beautiful family. But it's just what you're saying there, and the way that you bring that across is you don't really know what's happening. And when you have all this criticism on social media, and you can see what players go through, that is some of the deep surface level of what some other players are thinking of, and you don't know how much more you're affecting them. And yet you think it's okay just because they're playing in front of you and things haven't gone the way you wanted it to go on a Saturday afternoon, for example.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's like it's that debate, isn't it, of like whose responsibility is it? So, like I said, social media is not going away. So, is it the fans' responsibility to not say nasty comments, or people's responsibility to not say any nasty comments to someone else, or is it your responsibility yourself to accept that there is going to be negative comments, whatever you're doing, and it's my responsibility to deal with that, because and that's the debate I have with people. And it's the same with like I've had a few conversations with players, and it's been like, okay, like some of them are sort of upset that they get screamed at and shouted at by a certain manager or whatever team they're playing for. And I'm saying to them, well, look, you got two options. You can either ask him, can you stop shouting at me and screaming at me? And it's probably the outcome of that is going to be him say, no, like that's the way I am. Or, yeah, I'll try, but he's not going to change because that's just the way he is. Or it's like, right, you accept him for who he is. You accept him for the style of manager he is, and he can't control his emotions. And now it's up to you to accept that he's going to be that way to you. How are you going to deal with that to still perform best? And I think that's the sort of way that you got to look at social media, really. It's like there's always going to be people out there that are saying nasty comments. That's not going to change. So that's a certain. So there's no point of even battling that or arguing that or saying, why are they saying that? Or I don't know what. Don't even go down that road. You just got to try and figure out, have a framework in mind, figure out a way, whether it's coming off completely or whether it's seeing a negative comment, putting the phone down, just having to think about, okay, what's been said there? Firstly, is it true in your mind? And then is it true just in general? And also, what could that person be going through there? And I think once you have these frameworks in mind, it's like it's completely your responsibility, in my opinion, to deal with these negative comments. And this is why a lot of people, players say, oh, who said that? When it's like, we get paid for the... I play for free. We don't get paid for playing. We get paid for all the stuff off the pitch. And I think that's so true.
Mm. That's very interesting. What do you think? Do you want to have any more input on that, Luke? Or
I think that's a very interesting take on things, and I like the way that you sort of flip that perspective in that accountability from our own sort of mindset and how we deal with that, because I think we do have to take a level of responsibility in order to accept that criticism and then put a framework, as you say, in place to understand it. Because I work in a school where I see a lot of challenging behavior, right? But I love my job, and a lot of people say, how do you do that? I'm like, the number one rule for me is I don't take any of the pressure on myself personally, because I know if I took every hateful comment from a child when they're upset or in a moment of distress, then I'd be very upset myself every day. And that's not down to me to be upset. It's down to me to try and channel that positively of how I can continue working with them and overcome these barriers which we're facing. So it's a very positive framework that we can all adapt and adopt in those sort of positions in those timeframes. But when we look in your career, right, and you've had a magnitude of different managers, I'm not sure if I'm correct in this number, but I think I've counted like 18 different managers which you've worked under in your career. And just touching upon that manager point, when you've had so many different personalities and so many different managers which you've been coached over the last 10 years, 10 to 14 years, there's a lot which comes in terms of those relationships. There's a lot that comes in terms of those pressures. There's a lot of adaptability. So sometimes when you see a player's career, they might play over 5-6 different managers, but when it comes to a high number, it's a lot of change for you across your career in terms of the loans, in terms of playing for clubs, being released, having transfers, undergoing different managers being sacked, caretaker managers. And when you add all that up, that's a lot to deal with in your life, aside from, i.e., social media, aside from where you're at now. And how do you adapt when there is such a change of manager across your career which you've experienced?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think obviously before you move to a new club, you generally do your research on the manager, You ask other players, like, oh, who you know has had that manager before, like, what's he like? So you've got a general idea. But actually, when it comes down to it, yeah, you just got to figure out a way in dealing with it yourself personally as good as possible. So obviously, I've had managers that would literally just not say anything on the bench, pretty calm, and I've had managers that are like just can't control their emotions, just rah rah rah. And to be fair, even earlier in my career, if I've had managers that are shouting, I've struggled with it. And that's why I believe in like the mentoring so much and the mindset coaching, because I feel like young players will be feeling the same, and managers, coaches, other players, they do affect players, like how they speak to them. If they're shouting, if they're screaming, the tone of what they're saying, it does affect any young player. And it's the same as in just business as well, right? So if you've got a new manager, you go to a new job, or you get promoted and you've got a new line manager, there needs to be a period, and it's usually probably of around 1 to 6 months of sort of figuring out what that manager wants from me, how he reacts to certain things I do, what's his mannerisms or his or her mannerisms, what are they, what do they like, what don't they like, and it's accepted that that sort of period is used for sort of like bedding in and getting to know each other. In football, you don't get that. In that first game, you need to perform, and the second game, you need to perform. And there might be things that come up during these games. You know, the first 2 games, you might be like, oh, he's actually all right. And then the next 3 games, you might just be screaming and hollering. And you're like, but I don't know how to deal with this. And you're in a game and there's 10,000 people watching you. And you're trying to figure out, why is he screaming at me when I don't even think I'm playing that bad? And these are all the thoughts going in your head. Whilst, by the way, there's a ball coming in, you've got to defend it. So, like you said, just like the mental capacity to deal with all of the different things that are thrown at you in football, including like different managers, because you might have a manager that's one way, and you might have an assistant manager that's a different way, and then the coach. You know, at some clubs I've been at, you've had the manager that's screaming and hollering, the assistant is the calmest man in the world, and the coach is a bit of a mixture of them both. And it's just sort of like, and it's different points they pop up on the sideline, and you've got to deal with these different things, and you've got to communicate with them differently, because if the manager's screaming, and you go back screaming at him, I know what it's like. It will depend on what their emotional intelligence is like. They'll probably go around to the bench and be like, right, get warmed up. He screamed at me. But you just screamed at me in the same way. So you've got to figure out, okay, I can't communicate that way with him. I'll let him shout at me, but I can't shout back at him. The assistant manager, calmer, he'll say something. If I disagree with it, I can shout back because I know that he's got the emotional intelligence to take that. Brilliant. So that's where I can vent myself. Certain players definitely can take it. Certain players definitely can't take it. So it's not just the managers and coaches, but your point is definitely valid. Of like, it is a lot to try and work out the different sort of like personalities and how the connections are going to work, how you can bond with that person, how to communicate best with each player. That's definitely moving to a new team. That's tough because some players, as we know, like we've got like different personalities and stuff. You got your red, your blue, your yellow, your green. There's so many different points off that. But like how they are as a person will relate to how they want to be communicated to. So my way of communicating one might be very calm and very like, look, it's okay, lad. But if someone's a red, for example, personality, you need to look into like all the. I'm sure you probably know about it, but if anyone listening who doesn't know about it, look into it. It's different types of personalities. They're very much like, they're very competitive. They're very direct. So they want to be. They don't mind being screamed at. Hey, do this right now, la 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 la, and they'll react to that better. Whereas if I did that to a blue, very calm, melancholy, just wants to get through day to day, like no dramas and stuff like that, they'd be like, well, why are you shouting at me like that? And there's all these different personalities in a football team, as there is in all different walks of life and different workplaces. It's the same with workplaces. You've got to figure out how to communicate with them and connect with your colleagues as best as possible. It's exactly the same on the pitch. So that sort of the dynamics of that, all your team members, all the squad, the coaching staff as well, and background staff, that is definitely the hardest bit of moving to a new club. It's finding out how everyone works and how to get the best out of them.
And you've got a short space of time to do that as well, really. If you've got a game Tuesday, Saturday, which is quite often the case in Football League, it's quite a quick turnaround, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, I think when I first moved to Orient, I think we had Tuesday, Saturday for the first 4 or 5 weeks. So it becomes very like you're in your own head. It's like I'm preparing for a game. As much as I want to connect and figure out everyone's how they are communicated to and stuff like that, I've just come from Rotherham, a championship team. I come down to League Two. I need to impress here, so I'm going to keep myself to myself, and I'm going to make sure I perform. And then you get into this sort of selfish spiral of like, well, it's Tuesday. Yeah, I played well, but I need to play well Saturday. So blah blah blah. Right, ice bath, blah blah blah. Get into training, get home, get my rest, and you neglect the side of like connecting with your teammates. And before you know it, you've gone through 2 months and you don't know anyone. So you're 100% right. It's like getting a balance of, making sure you perform, do your job, get to know the environment you're in first, get as comfortable as you can personally, but also then being a bit selfless and being like, right, how can I get the best out of you? What's your communication style? What's your personality? What things make you go into your shell? So yeah, that's definitely, and for me, someone who likes to think of themselves as like a leader and someone who likes to talk to people when they're struggling and stuff like that, it's even more of a burden. Some players will openly say, "That's not me." Like I play, I train, and I go home. And like, we, as players, we joke about it and we say, "There's no friends in football." Like as soon as I leave this club, I'm not speaking to any of you. That's literally like what we all say in football, and we all laugh and joke, and we all think, "Oh, he's funny," but it's true. I've got one friend that I still see in football, and he lives 2 minutes down the road, luckily. But I've had some, like you said, Luca, I've had 18 different managers. So I've had obviously 18 different sort of teams or squads, really. And yeah, over a 15-year career, I've got one friend I still see regularly. So you just think of it like that, and you just think, yeah, as soon as you're moving area, as soon as you're moving club, you've got your own family to sort of deal with. You've got the new club to deal with. I've got to get a new contract. You've got your just life problems. The last thing you're thinking about is, I need to meet up with him though. I need to travel 2 hours or an hour and a half to go and meet up with him because we really got along well. It's a different world, football, and there's just no friends in it.
Very interesting, and thanks for sharing about that, Adam. I mean, before going to next segment, Luca, I'm going to mention, is there anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I just want to touch upon, you've had sort of 18 different managers, and please correct me if you haven't been managed by these, because I know you've been loaned out at various points, and I've tried to work out where they all sort of add up, but they've all crossed paths across your career at some point. When you look at the difference in personality types of some of these managers, right? Marky Mackay, Sean Dyche, Hugh Rossler, Gianfranco Zola, Gareth Ainsworth, Giuseppe Sanino, Edgar Davids, Phil Brown, Stuart McCall, Simon Grayson, Michael Collins, Lee Clark, Ryan Lowe, Chris Luchetti, Paul Warren, Kenny Jackett, Richie Wellens, and then we got Dean Brennan. There is such an array of different managers within that sort of timeline. And again, please correct me if you weren't managed by any of those. But if you look at some of the standouts, right, you were given your debut by Gianfranco Zola, which we know is a very interesting character within himself, right? Then there's sort of like Gareth Ainsworth, which again is a very eccentric character. Looks like he should be in a rock band sometimes more than a football pitch, but a very interesting sort of manager. And I love his mindset, and I think that's one to explore sometimes a little bit more in football. And then you look at Phil Brown, who spent the longest with it, and then that period of time working with. And then you got Dean Brennan, which we've seen the video on social media a few weeks ago, and me and you have spoken about that video, George, right?
Yeah.
So out of those sort of managers, and I think Phil Brown and Edgar Davids is most interesting. But you were there at Barnet when Edgar Davids was appointed. And looking back, both me and George being young sort of FIFA fans at the time and looking at that sort of appointment, that was a very sideways, strange appointment. But what was it like being at Barnet and working with Edgar Davids at that time? If I'm correct that you played there, Ad.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I was only there for, I think I was only there for one game. I think I played the first game, come on against Bradford, and then I dislocated my shoulder in training a couple of days later. So literally I was there for one. So I was probably there for 3 sessions and 1 match. So I didn't actually get to see the full extent of him. But obviously going there, Edgar Davids, like big name, I was like excited to sort of see, because he was still playing. He was playing manager, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
got to train with him, and I was thinking like, here we go. And I'm a Spurs fan, so he's obviously at Spurs. So I was like, this is like my family. Like, oh wow, this is brilliant. I think another couple of people have said this about him, but I didn't see it when I trained with him. I didn't see that he's played for Juventus and been on the front of FIFA games that I've obviously bought and stuff like that. But it's obviously we're on different pitches. Like, is he actually motivated when in terms of playing? He could have been 40 by then, so he could have been like, obviously when I'm 40, he's a million times the player I'm going to be. But like, I was expecting like that. Do you know what I mean? Like the Juventus, the front of the FIFA player, and it wasn't that sort of thing at all. So, but I don't know why I was expecting that, because he was obviously a lot older by that point. But no, it was, in terms of him as a character, I don't remember much, to be fair. I remember he's very, very demanding, very, very stern. I think he made everyone call him Sir, which I think is like a European thing. But like, it just sort of sums him up. It's like, I'm Sir. Like, I'm not your mate. Like, I'm your boss. And you do everything that I say. And that was very much his mentality. And you got like obviously Gianfranco Zola, like you said, who's like the most softest, gentlest, kindest person you meet. And like, he obviously had the respect from the lads from the minute go, because obviously his career. So I had this conversation with a group of players the other day. It's like, as a manager, do you gain respect? Do you earn respect, or do you have to like? Do you initially get respect, or do you have to earn it? Should I say? So with Zola, like, that's it. He doesn't need to earn it. He's got a respect, because it's like Gianfranco Zola, like, what a player. And then it's up to him to then obviously earn the respect of maybe the coaching side of things. But like, initially we're like, oh, we're buzzing that he's our manager. Whereas some managers haven't even played football, and suddenly they're coming in. We're like, who's this? We've never heard of him, and they have to really earn their stripes, should I say, with the players. But yeah, that dynamic's interesting. But no, it's like I said, with like from Zola to Phil Brown, the differences. I could go on and on all day, but I don't think it matters as much. There's no right or wrong. It's just if they get the results. And Phil Brown in his time at Southend got results. He was very, very successful when I was there with him. And the same
I
as
remember having a season ticket there, Adam, when you was playing.
Yeah. So obviously, I think when I joined, we made playoffs the first season, lost to Burton. The following season, we went up through the playoffs. Following season, solid mid-table, finished League One. Following season, missed out on the League One playoffs by goal difference to Millwall, or 1 point from an offside goal, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. It was a last-minute goal, because I remember there was a cheering crowd because everyone thought Millwall conceded or whatever, and it ended up it wasn't.
Yeah. It was apparently about 5 yards offside, and obviously they went on to get promoted. And I honestly feel with the team we had that season, squad we had that season, we would have been the Millwall that season. We would have gone up through the playoffs, because we was on we started terribly, and then we was good. And like the players we had, obviously Nara Ranger, Simon Cox, Anton Ferdinand, Ryan Leonard, Ben Coker, Demetriou, like Will Atkinson, Michael Timlin. It was like, yeah, it was unbelievable, really, sort of for League One, really, back then. But we so he was very successful. And like I said, Zola, my first season, we lost in the playoff final to Crystal Palace. And then my second season, I think I left halfway through, but they got promoted that year. So it's the same sort of thing. So different personalities can still bring success. It's just more, like you said, Luca, like, how do you deal with that? Like, you walk on eggshells for the first maybe few weeks, month, before you figure out, you see him either offload at that player when he does that, or half-time he comes in, he does that. And then you're like, all right, okay, I now understand how he reacts to certain situations.
I think it's very interesting when you have those certain, different dynamics and those certain interest of relationships which can certainly unfold, because, you don't want your relationship to go sour, because at the end of the day, you have to, be selfish within putting yourself forward to get as many minutes as you want, because at the end of the day, it's your career and you have to be there in that sort of position. But, it can be a very tough time being under different managers, especially if you sign for one manager, for example, then they get sacked and the caretaker manager is installed. And then it changes the dynamic within that, because obviously you're a little bit apprehensive whether there's going to be a different permanent manager, how that's going to look in terms of what he's going to cut from the squad, how he's going to play tactically, and how your position changes within that. So there's always a lot of moving parts within a footballer's career. And when you look at how many different moving parts there have been. It's a very tough life when it can be a footballer, training and traveling and moving family and being under different managers. But I think level wise, it shows the level of resilience you have, because even when I just look at your achievements right in your career, you've had automatic promotions with Bury, you've had automatic promotion with Rotherham, you won the EFL League Two with Leyton Orient, you won the playoffs with Southend United, you've then played for your country, you've played in League Two, League One, Championship, FA Cup, Papa John's, and the League Cup. You've played under those series of managers. When you sort of look back on your career, you've had quite an incredible career in the reality of it.
Yes, yeah, no, thank you for that. And yeah, it's interesting to say that, because I think when you're a lower league footballer, you sort of, well, for me anyway, I see myself as like, yeah, oh, no one like really cares. Do you know what I mean? Like, I haven't done that much because obviously I haven't made the ultimate goal of getting to the Premier League. So like, but I'll just play like lower down the leagues, but like when you actually become more experienced and talk to players in dressing rooms, you can see, you can feel, you can hear that they really respect you, and they're like, well, you got 4 promotions. It's like, wow. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got 3 from League Two and 1 from League One. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah, like maybe it is. But like at the time I was thinking, from Division 4 to Division 3, 3 promotions, and from Division 3 to Division 2, it's like, I don't know. I never believed that it was that good of achievement, that good of a career. But I think it's taken me to come out of it to see definitely how in the minority I am, getting 4 promotions, especially throughout my career, and also to be able to play, like, to get 4 international caps is no, it's something I am very proud of. I'm very proud of, to sort of honour my family with, because they've obviously supported me from like a young age. So it's something that my dad definitely would have been so proud of in terms of like achievements, because he was the one that sort of like went to the sessions with me and built me up and was my coach when I was younger. So it's something that I definitely can honour sort of his life with, should I say. So that definitely makes me happy as well. But yeah, it's interesting actually, because when you say about the managers and the different managers and stuff, it's probably an interesting take on it. But my opinion of it is, I've always played better when I haven't really got on with the manager as much. So as soon as I get, a manager signs me, or he brings me in the team or whatever, I feel like a loyalty to him. So I feel like an added pressure to do well for that manager, as well as obviously play well myself. So I want to do well for you. I want to win a game for you. I don't want to make a mistake, like in your team, because it's obviously going to like kill you. But then as soon as then you sort of lose that respect and lose that loyalty a little bit, however that happens, it becomes a bit of a different mentality of like, well, I don't actually care if I play better there. So it gives you that freedom. That's my personal experience of it. And it's very, very strange, because a lot of players are the opposite way round. Like when they haven't got respect for a manager, they're like, I'm not going to run it, I'm not going to try a leg, and you can see it. But for my character, I'm very much like, I'm a people pleaser. I really want to just do anything I can to help anyone. So as soon as I think I'm in a bit of a debt to a manager, it adds so much pressure to me. And I might get through the first few games and do okay, but in the long run, the pressure builds up and I'll be out of the team. And then it's that cycle of then you're out of the team, then you feel like you should be in the team, and then you realise, well, hang on, I'm only playing bad because I was trying to play for you. Do you know what? Actually, forget this. I'm just playing for myself and for my team now, and then you just end up playing well because there's a lot of pressure taken off of you. So that's a mentality that I've had in my career, which I haven't heard any other players feel like that way before. So that might be an interesting take.
I think it's a very interesting take, and I think it's one that can put you ahead of other footballers, especially if you've got that mindset and you're willing to deal with that. Whereas some footballers might deal with that and have the opposite effect, where they don't want to play up to the manager, or it puts them at a bit of a disadvantage because they're not willing to step up, or there's a lot of intricacies which follow within that. So I think that's only a testament towards the mindset which you've instilled, and how you take that forward. Now, very conscious of time, and at the time that we've agreed to have you on, and I know that Jordan wants to move on to another segment, and considering what you had planned out for tonight, Jord, where do you want to take the next bit, Jord, and what do you want to get in there?
Yeah, no, it's just that I was interested when you were saying about going from your grassroots days when you started with Warmley, as you said, And then you've gone through to the stages with Spurs, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah. So, what age was that from until? Could you tell, like, the demands? Was it quite a? I mean, with grassroots, there's coaches out there that can be quite demanding, if you know what I mean. It comes to into as well, I suppose, when you go into Spurs, somewhere like Spurs as well, the demands might be higher. I don't know. Can you tell us about more what the pressures were like and demands were like from going from that from Warmly to Spurs?
To be honest, mate, I'd love to tell you, but I can't remember at all. Like at 9 years old, I can't remember what the differences were at that point. The only thing I do remember is obviously me being the best player for Wormley, and then me going to Spurs and thinking like, oh, probably I'm not the best player. You know, I might be somewhere in the middle, but I'm not the best player. So that's obviously then sort of things makes you think like, oh, I need to be better here. Whereas at Wormley, you're just sort of not thinking about anything. You know, you're the best player. You're just playing with a bit of freedom. Whereas then suddenly you're competing against other players, and instead of playing with freedom, you're then suddenly playing to be better than the other person in your position, maybe, which changes. So straight away from age 9, there's that a mindset comes into it. Whereas that probably didn't. I didn't rely on my mindset when I was 9 at Wormley, playing with freedom. If I played bad, I played bad. I'm still the best player. Whereas when you're playing at Spurs or in any academy, and you're going, well, if I don't play well this year, then I don't get another year, and I don't stay at Spurs, the team that my family supports. That is a pressure. I think a lot of the time, coaches come into it. So my first year at Spurs, I had a coach, Ray Nicholson. Unbelievable. Like, just made all the lads feel so at ease, so happy. In my opinion, what you should make 9-year-olds feel like, 10-year-olds feel like playing football. Just make mistakes, just have freedom, just enjoy it. And then the season after, I had a completely different coach with the opposite mindset. It's like, this is academy football now. Like, it's getting serious. Like, we need to play well. I'm playing my strongest team every week, and like, if you're not in it, you're not in it. And if you're not in the squad, you're not in the squad. And if you make mistakes, I'm going to tell you. You can't do that there. You can't do a Cruyff turn there. You know, in defensive third, and you can't make mistakes. And it's very much that definitely changed the way I sort of looked at the game and definitely played the game. That affected me, and I think it affected quite a few others as well. But it's just to show that, like, that's the leaders that we have in our game. That's the people that are coaching, like Spurs academy lads, and that can affect their futures. You know, there might have been players in that team that might be like, you know what, this ain't for me, and they could have gone on to be unbelievable players. But because that one coach has affected them in that way, for me, that may have been where the self-doubt and the not wanting to make mistakes first come in, if you're digging deep into it. So yeah, I think there's definitely a change in mentality in terms of, like, you're not the best anymore and you're competing, in answer to your question. But secondly, I think it completely relies on the coach, really, at a young age, up until maybe 16. I think if the coaches give you the freedom to play, good coaches, that does help a lot.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think with because as well, Spurs being your boyhood club as well, like, it must have been a dream to be representing Spurs anyway. But then, as you say, yeah, that's it with coaches. I mean, I remember having it at 17s and 18s when I was with Chelmsford. They was coming to me and, they were saying, well, what do you expect us to do? And it was the first season that was a bit of a reality check, I'll be honest, that I I learned a lot from, because I was trying to be a bit too precise with the coaching, if you like. But then it came to the under 18 season, and I thought, you know what, they're still young. Give them that freedom and see how they express themselves. And actually, it was a complete polar opposite, and it worked really well. And that's what players, I feel, at youth level needs, and I think in general in football needs. But unfortunately, when it comes to for top flight levels, you're expecting to win games because there's the pressure from all angles, And yeah, it's just very interesting because, like you say, when you're at that young age, you'll think of that one coach, that one mentor, and I still think about that with one or two teachers I had at school that, you know, we've spoken about in the past one teacher that wasn't very supportive, but then I look at it and think of two teachers that were very supportive, you know. And they stick out in your mind, don't they?
Yeah, exactly what you said, mate. I think they've got the ability to, especially from a young age, to shape your mindset, how you look at life, which is, it's unbelievable, really, because like, yeah, like obviously in this chat now, we've got Luke who's a teacher, you who's a coach, and me who's a player, and and a mentor. We've all got the ability to affect people's lives, and it's like, especially Luca with like, you know, a young age, that young age, like you said, Jules, obviously with your experiences of like teachers and stuff like that, like good ones and bad ones, it does stay in there, you know, and it can give you trauma for the rest of your life, or it can give you belief for the rest of your life. And it's like, that's why it's so important to have skilled, emotionally intelligent, empathetic like leaders, no matter what that is, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a coach, whether it's parents. I think that's where the key is, really, of like, that's what is bringing it full circle. The lack of that, and the lack of leadership, the lack of emotional intelligence, the lack of belief and freedom given to kids, and understanding put in them by teachers and coaches and stuff, that affects them as adults, and they're the ones that are on Twitter then getting their trauma out to other people. It's not their fault though. They've been affected by what's happened in their childhood by either, like you said, parents, siblings, coaches, teachers. The responsibility that like that people have when you're coaching children or teaching children is like massive, because you might, like Luca, for you, so you might feel some days like, oh, they're not going to remember me, or this is just like, but they will. And it's like they will always remember you. You'll always have effects on their life, whether they distinctly remember your face and you, or whether it's just something you put in them as people to be like, oh yeah, I'm rubbish at this. No, you're not. Like, let's try again. Look, oh my word, you're amazing. That can change a kid's outlook on life for the rest of their life. And you just think, wow, like if everyone sort of knew that, and if everyone was skilled enough to sort of be like that and be empathetic, calm, understanding with children, whether it's in a football club or at schools, the better society would be, in my opinion. Getting a bit deep here, but is unbelievable. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think, you know, football teaches so many skills, and people don't see the skills it can bring out of for everyday life, really. And it's so transferable. And I suppose that even if you've gone to do a 9 to 5 job or being a teacher like with you, Luca, and that, them skills you can set in so many other ways in your life.
100%, yeah. Like you said, transferable skills. I think it's all the same, whether it's coaching football or coaching people or coaching education. It's it's not actually what you're doing, it's the way you are with them. So it's the same as, again, bringing it back around to the like connecting with the coaches, connecting to the players, figuring out what makes them tick. That's all it is. And obviously we talk about Neil Warnock and an absolute like the best man manager anyone has said. Whoever's had him said like his man management's unbelievable. And he says himself, 95% of managing anyone or leading anyone is all about person to person, people skills. That's all it is. That's all being a teacher is. That's all being a coach is. That's all being a mentor is. That's all anything in life really, is how you connect with other people. But what I've realized especially since becoming a parent is, and being around more other parents and being around schools and stuff like that, is it's unbelievable how much built up trauma is being offloaded to the next generation. So, you know, I see some parents at schools and stuff, and you just think the way you're talking to your child, they're not going to have confidence growing up. That's going to affect them in some way, and then they're going to then probably talk that way to people that they love, and maybe even their children, and it's just a cycle. And it's like, where do we stop? But also understand of the fact, I know you're talking to your children like that because you've probably been spoke to like that as well, or treated in a certain way. So it's like, just like I've got this massive like obsession with like just wanting to stop the generational trauma sort of thing, but it's unrealistic. But the only place it can start is education. I think if you can educate as many teachers, if you can educate as many people in leadership positions as possible, that's definitely going to go a long way to helping. So whether it's coaches at a young age, whatever level, grassroots, academy, teachers, public, private, people like in like the psychology sort of departments, like mentors like myself. I could be a mentor and I could have no idea about anything. I could be saying to everyone completely wrong thing and giving them trauma as well, and affecting their self-belief in a negative way as well. So I think it's so important that the people in leadership positions that can affect like children's lives and young adults' lives are so skilled in the emotional intelligence and the empathy side of things. Because if they're not, we're just going to be in the same cycle, and yeah, just the amount of trauma that's caused.
Yeah, absolutely. It's thinking on a lot of different perspectives tonight that I've taken away from it. So thanks, Adam. Yeah, I remember it's like you were saying with Neil Warnock. I did keep traineeship with QPR, and we was doing coaching in the community at the time to build up for that qualification. And I remember one time that I was so happy because I didn't like going out to places that I didn't know. I was a bit afraid, like especially going around like QPR area in London. Like I was like, blimey, it's overwhelming. But I was so happy that I found my way back, and I was like, "Oh, result." So the tutor said to us, "Meet us back in this box." So I ended up going in front box, and Neil Warnock was having a meeting in there, and he's like, "Can I help you, sir?" I was like, "Ah," like all on guard, and I started to shake. He said, "I think you need next door, young man." And I looked, and everyone's next door. I was like, "Oh, gold!" But you know what I mean? There was nothing rude about it. It was just quite calm, and it was nice to have that little bit of interaction with someone that's so highly regarded in football. You know?
Yeah, and that's exactly like what you said there. Is just like it doesn't have to be like massive teachings or massive like you don't have to change people massively, or it's not hard, but it's not hard for some people. What I'm saying is it could even be the little interactions in a day that affect someone massively for the rest of their life. So like you said then, if he'd have turned around and said, what on earth do you think you're doing? Get out. Like, do you know who I am? I'm the manager here. Like, you don't just walk in on me. That would have affected you. So now from that point onwards, in some psychological way, you would have always probably been scared to like walk into any rooms, or if you're in different offices, it's like, I don't want to get up here because I might like sort of trespass on anyone's meetings or stuff. It's just them sort of like subconscious thoughts that would have been planted there just from that. But because he was the way he is, you probably got no problem now in going into different rooms. Oh, sorry, I'll go out now. So just for that as an example, the way you talk to people, the way you are with people, can affect how you see the world so much. And yeah, like I say, I think leadership positions are so important, whether it's teachers or coaches or mentors.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And yeah, I mean, there's so many more things that could be covered on my end, but I mean, time and everything like that as well. Um, it's just phenomenal, and it's great that we've been in contact with each other too, Adam. You know, and it's great that you've been able to come on here because it's really gave us good insight, hasn't it, Luca?
Absolutely, I completely agree, and I really appreciate you coming on, Adam, because I've got an extraction of questions that I was ready to have prepared and ask you. But I think where the conversation has taken such a great flow, and we've looked at so many different angles and perspectives, it's given us a wider consideration of not only what you're doing further beyond, playing, how you've looked back on the game, working under different managers, different personality types, affecting young people, considerations of the future, lasting memories, those relationships. I think they're just some of the snapshots of what this conversation has been, and I think this has been incredible, much more than a Q&A typically about how a player's career has gone. But I think there's so much more which we could extract about your career and then really unlock over a journey of time. But it's been great to really have this hour with you, especially again when you consider all the things you've got going on, running a business, 2 young kids, family at home, and doing this late on at night, 7:45. It's a lot of demands, and so I appreciate your balance, and especially for Jordan to set this up. But it's been great to have you on in so many different different insights and perspectives, which we really appreciate. And it's been such a wonderful conversation. I know if you've got just a couple of minutes before we finish, Jordan's going to finish on the quick fire question round, which is nothing to catch you out on. There's no questions posed like the Daily Mirror or anything like that. They're just aimed for a bit of fun to finish off with.
Perfect.
Okay. So, what is your number one top tip for aspiring for any young footballer?
Try and stay as similar to being a child as you possibly can. So what I mean by that is mentally, I think as children, as you grow up through academies, you feel like you want to progress and be an adult and be a man as soon as possible. But when you're a man, you've got fears and you've got anxieties, and then actually through therapy, through psychology, what you're actually then searching to get back to is pretty much being a kid and being just carefree. So it's amazing how like you go through that cycle of like wanting to be older. I need to be a man to get into the first team because they're all men. But then when you're a man, you realize all these fears you have and responsibilities you have and the consequences of what happens if you don't play well and then if you don't get a contract. If you can stay as much as a child as you can, and I'm not saying Cole Palmer is a child or has a child's brain, but I'm using Cole Palmer as an example in terms of, in my opinion, looking at him, he has nothing else going on in his head apart from I'm just going to enjoy it today and just show off and do what I can do. So maybe not as quick fire as you was hoping that one, but that is
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, I was watching that on social media this morning for Chelsea Wolves game. Was it Chelsea? Not Chelsea Wolves, Chelsea Forest yesterday. And Cole Palmer was just watching fight break out, and he was just sitting there, like just chill. So three more questions. One that I'm going to put to you now is you said about League Two to Championship. Do you feel there's a difference in terms of, is it all about technical, as people say, or is it a mindset?
Technically, the good players in League Two won't be far off, or could be better than some players in the Championship. For me, there's definitely a mindset shift in terms of sacrifice, discipline, willingness to do sort of the right things, not eat rubbish, etc. But for me, the main thing, especially in the modern day, is the physicality. So you in the Championship, in some experiences of teams I've played for, they haven't actually been that good a player, but they're just absolute beasts. So if you're a right back or a left back and you're just a physical beast, you're not amazing footballer, but you just don't get beat 1v1, you're going to play because that's what you're in a team for, not to get beat 1v1. Same with wingers. If your end product isn't amazing, but you're going to beat that player and you're dangerous to play against, then you're probably going to be in the team. And I think a lot of the teams these days, especially in the Championship or the higher you go, are looking for that physicality. I think that's the minimum. I think if you look in the Prem these days, I've got a few friends that have played in cup matches against Premier League players, and they say like in the tunnel you're just looking next to you and you're just thinking like, wow, like I didn't even think you was that big. The big players like Van Dijk, I played against him pre-season for Bury, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like he is literally like, he's like a wrestler. Like he's ridiculous. And then played in pre-season against like Heung-min Son, for example, and I'm like looking at him on TV thinking like, yeah, he's really quick, but obviously as a player, you'd like to think you'd like nothing. His quads are like massive. Harry Kane. You think like Harry Kane, just like a normal sort of player. His legs and his upper body, but his legs are just solid. He's massive. And it's like the physicality of all these players. And I think generally, as you go down from Prem to League Two, you see that decrease in physicality, whether it's the speed or whether it's the strength, whether it's the power or altogether. That's what I feel now the modern game's going towards more. Linked with the mindset. But in terms of technical ability, I don't think there's much. I've seen better players in League Two than I have in Championship.
Okay. What are your three non-negotiables in life and as a player?
Great question. It's going to be a weird answer, but I feel like it's probably not I don't like to have non-negotiables. I'm always willing to change and adapt, and improve, and grow. So my opinions now on the way the world should be, or the way I should be, or the way my family should be, or that's not a fixed mindset. I'm willing to change that. So if you say to me, George, like, but what about this? Have you thought about that? And I'll be like, yeah, no, do you know what? No, you're right. So I'm willing to adapt anything, really. I would say, obviously, family values is a massive one for me. I'd say just be caring, just be kind, no matter what, is a big one for me. And maybe one that I've learned that I've never really had, because I am a people pleaser, is boundaries. That's one recently that I've definitely learned, is you have to set boundaries at the right times. Otherwise, it's just a recipe for disaster. So if I could say three, probably them three off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. And for the last one, because Luca asked me this before when we was doing a pod, is what does reflection mean to you?
Reflection means thinking about what's just happened, thinking about what's gone well, what's gone wrong, how you can improve maybe the things that have gone wrong next time, and understanding why you've done everything that you've done, whether it's the good or whether it's the bad, understanding your mindset doing it, and understand, can you do that in a different way? And will it be going against you yourself as a person and your values, or can you improve it?
Love that. Great answer. Anything you'd like to add, Luca?
No, just what a fantastic way to finish off what has been such a fantastic hour and 20 minutes spent with yourself this evening. I really appreciate the openness, the honesty, how deep the conversation has gone, and just being a very humble person, which you have been right throughout. And I really appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure to have made this connection through Jordan, which is such a wonderful individual and a great friend of mine. So I'm glad that he's pieced this together. And George, thank you for leading most of tonight. I know I've pitched in at certain points, but I've loved what you've brought to the table. It's been nice to sit back and just listen and to be making more notes than hosting and trying to make notes. So that's been really nice to take away. And I feel like I've got a lot to sort of condense down after this into some narrow points in what the podcast was about. But there's been so much covered tonight. And Adam, I really do appreciate your time. And it's a big thank you from me. It's a big thank you from us. So thanks again.
No, thank you both as well. It's been really enjoyable. Thanks for getting me on, George. Thanks for inviting me on, mate. And no, Luca, pleasure to meet you, mate. And yeah, you're both doing a great job by the looks of it. So keep going.
Yeah, thanks very much, Adam. And yeah, always a pleasure speaking to you. It's I've learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot. And it's all about teamwork, lads.
Yeah, 100%. No, thanks, lads. You made it easy for me. So thank you.
Well, pleasure. Take care with recovery. Hopefully, we'll see you back on the pitch sooner rather than later. But good luck with the business as well. And it'd be great to see what happens next. But have a great evening, great rest of the week. And thank you again from us.
Cheers, lads. See you later.
Cheers, matey. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, George.
But yeah, we try to be that group that can help be there for the players as a three, because I think you mentioned earlier, you want to have different characters in the changing room. You want to have different personalities. You don't want the same kind of people, because you're not going to be able to move forward. If you've got 10 people and they all agree the same things, you're going to get to a point in time where actually you're going to become unstuck. You need that one person to actually be like, nah, I don't agree with that. Or actually, we should try this. And I think that's why the huddle works, is we're all quite different as human beings. And I think you need three different people in there, because some players will naturally gravitate towards me and my personality, but equally some might go to the other two, and that's absolutely fine.